السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Today inshallah we'll be studying the lesson of Hadith using the book written by the greatest Muhaddith ever known in the history of Islam, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. This book is called Al-Adab al-Mufrad. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, as is well known for his work of hadith, but unfortunately most of the people think that he wrote only one book throughout his life, and that is Sahih al-Bukhari. But in reality, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah wrote many books. And for whatever reason, the other books written by Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi are never mentioned. They have never been in public for a long time. And people took Sahih al-Bukhari as the only book of hadith. Just as when we look at it from this angle, that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi himself wrote other books of hadith, and one of them is the one that we have here with us, Al-Adab al-Mufrad. This tells us that the hadith is not limited to Sahih al-Bukhari. There are many more ahadith, and at some time we get the feeling that if the hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari, then that's a true hadith, and if it is not in Sahih al-Bukhari, then we don't have to worry about it. If that was true, then Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi would not have written the other books of hadith. Just the fact that he wrote this other book of hadith tells us that there are many more ahadith that we have to keep in mind before we make any judgment about a hadith. There are so many ahadith in this book, Al-Adab al-Mufrad, that are not in Sahih al-Bukhari. And the reason Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi wrote this book so that these ahadith would be followed also is not for these ahadith not to be followed and just follow Sahih al-Bukhari. The reason he wrote this book so that we follow the ahadith that are in this book also. Of course, we have to understand why Imam Bukhari rahimahullah himself separated the ahadith, that he would put some in Sahih al-Bukhari and he put others in other books like Al-Adab al-Mufrad. The reason is there are different levels of ahadith. And there, according to the level of ahadith, Muhadtheen would determine, remember, not me and you, Muhadtheen would determine where this hadith would belong to, and in which topic the hadith would be acceptable, in which topic this hadith will not be acceptable. This is a very interesting topic when it comes to learning hadith, that sometime when you see the ruling about a hadith says this hadith is daif, for example. Normally when people will look at it and they look at that ruling that the hadith is daif, they think it simply means the hadith is not acceptable. which is totally untrue. And in fact, we can say that there is a reason why Muhadtheen wrote that da'if hadith in their authentic book. For example, there are many ahadith in Sahih Muslim that some Muhadtheen would think this hadith is da'if. Remember, we are talking about Muslim. In fact, there are some hadiths in Sahih al-Bukhari that some Muhadtheen would feel this is da'if. There are hadiths in other books of As-Sahih Sitta like Abu Dawud, like Sunan al-Tirmidhi, like Ibn Majah, like Sunan al-Nasai. There are hadiths in there that are considered to be da'if, yet those great Muhadtheen chose to write that hadith in their book. So now what's happening these days is that a person comes who studied the science of authentication of the hadith, and he goes through the book, okay, looks at the chain of the narrators. No, this person is not that authentic, so this hadith is da'if. Or Muhadtheen already declared the hadith da'if. So he says, this hadith, take it out of Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Don't accept this anymore. So he goes through the whole Tirmidhi, for example. He goes through the whole Abu Dawud. He goes through Sahih al-Bukhari. Then he makes a list of those ahadith and tells us that these ahadith are authentic and these ahadith are not authentic, which means he comes up with his own list that if you really want to study the Sahih hadith from Tirmidhi, then these are the only hadiths you should study. Didn't Imam Tirmidhi know that this hadith was not Sahih, it was da'if? Didn't Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullahi alayhi know that this hadith was Hasan and it was not Sahih? He knew it. He declared it himself. In fact, there are many hadiths in Sunan Abi Dawud where Imam Abu Dawud, after mentioning the hadith, will say this hadith is not authentic. This hadith is da'if. This is the word. Let's not use the word authentic and not authentic. So, the question is, if those Muhadtheen, in spite of knowing that the hadith is da'if, they still wrote the hadith in their book, there must be a reason. So the Muhadtheen knew that this hadith is da'if, which means falls under the category of da'if, but still they wrote the hadith in their book. And they said there is a reason behind it. What is the reason? Because as we understand, da'if means weak. It does not really mean weak when it comes to the terminology of hadith. According to the terminology of hadith, Muhadtheen use the word Sahih, Hasan, Da'if, and many other terminologies. They used it as a terminology of hadith. They did not use that as the literal meaning, for the literal meaning of it. Always remember, the terminology has to be understood from people who define that word as a terminology in this field. So when they specified the hadith da'if, they told us what does da'if means. Now let us understand this a little bit, understand the terminology a little bit. Sometimes there is a hadith about aqa'id, which means Islamic beliefs. As we understand and we know very well, beliefs are the highest category of deen. And when it comes to beliefs, then for sure you need a hadith that is in the highest level of the authenticity of hadith. Now, if a person would present a hadith to us about a belief from Sahih al-Bukhari, remember, we know that hadith is authentic. All the Muhadtheen said the hadith is authentic, but we will have to wait, because it's a matter of aqeedah, belief, iman. And when it comes to aqeedah, when it comes to belief, then we have to make sure that this hadith, not only that it's authentic, but it's supported by other ayahs and hadith also. Depending on what type of aqeedah that is. There are certain aqa'id, if a person will not believe in that aqeedah, that person would be kafir. There are certain aqa'id, if a person would not believe in them, he will be of the people of bid'ah. Depending on the type of aqeedah, if it is on the highest level of aqeedah, which means iman and kufr, then you need a hadith that we call it mutawatir. Mutawatir means large number of people have been narrating it from the time of Prophet ﷺ until the time of Muhadtheen. The opposite of mutawatir, you can say, is khabar wahid. Khabar wahid means there is one narrator somewhere in the chain. Now, when there is only one person narrating the hadith at a certain period of history, there is little doubt that did he really understood everything exactly? Did he remember everything word by word? Is he narrating it the way he heard it? There is little doubt over there. And by that doubt, you cannot prove aqeedah of iman and kufr. Iman and kufr is not a minor thing. So, even if hadith is sahih, it still may not be acceptable when it comes to the matter of aqa'id. So now someone presents a hadith to us, and he says, this hadith is sahih, and it's related to aqa'id, beliefs. And right away we, by looking at the meaning or the translation of hadith, we make a decision about aqeedah, about a belief. A person may be very badly misled in his aqa'id. The point, I'm sure, is very clear now for us to realize that the word sahih, daif, hasan doesn't mean the way we normally take it, that sahih means authentic, daif means weak, and that's it, not acceptable, and take sahih for everything and reject daif from everything. That's not true. In fact, now, Muhadtheen, as they specify, they tell us that for hadith, in the aqaid, you need hadith mutawatir. You need hadith mashhur. If it is a hadith, and then not only this, if we go into further detail, they also look at what type of words are used in the hadith. They use the word, the terminology used, qat'i al-thubut, qat'i al-dalala. Qat'i al-thubut means that hadith is proven with extremely authentic proofs that this is exactly how it is. Okay, there may be hadith like that. But then we need the second point, which is called qat'iyyud dalala, which means the hadith, the wording of hadith are so clear that there is no question of what else it could mean. Or it has been declared by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam or Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, or the Ummah have agreed upon the meaning of the hadith. Now this is qat'iyyud dalala. But if the hadith is qat'iyyud thubut, which means we know exactly this is hadith for sure, this is how many there are. There were 1,000 narrators in every time. 1,000 Sahaba heard it. Then 1,000 of their students heard it from them. And up to this day, we have 1,000 people at every portion of the history that have been narrating it. Qat'iyyut thubut, which means it's for sure it's a hadith. And this is how it is. 1,000 people cannot be lying at every time. But the wording of the hadith says something where it could mean this, it could mean this, it could mean this. And the meaning has not been specified. So that cannot become aqeedah. For aqeedah you need qat'iyyud dalala, which means it has been proven, agreed upon that this is what it means. Agreed upon not by us, by the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, and by the Muhadtheen and the Fuqaha of the Ummah. without going into that detail, inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow us, someday we will go into the detail of understanding the science of the authentication of hadith, so that we know how Muhadtheen worked with the hadith and how a hadith could be considered authentic and not authentic. Now, just moving a little bit further to understand the point, when there is a hadith that is called da'if, what does it mean? According to Muhadtheen, the word da'if means that this hadith is not acceptable when it comes to aqidah, belief, is not acceptable when it comes to ibadat, fara'id, wajibat. It is not acceptable in that. But this hadith is acceptable when it comes to fada'il, virtues. And that is the reason Muhadtheen, when they narrate a hadith that is da'if in their book, they narrate it for one of the virtues of something that has already been established in Islam. Just to mention the virtue of it. And that hadith is acceptable there. I'll tell you my own experience once being in a masjid. I narrated a hadith, and someone went and he brought a book to me. He said, look, over here, basically he was telling me, he said, see what this says. And over there the word says, hadithun da'ifun. The hadith is da'if. So he said to me, translate this. I said, do you really want to know what does this mean? He said, yes. I said, this says the hadith is acceptable. So he was very upset. He said, the word da'if, you're translating it as acceptable? I said, yeah, this is what it means. He says, there is no dictionary in the world that says that this is acceptable. I said, that's the mistake you're making. You're looking for the word da'if in the dictionary, whereas this is terminology, is not a word from the dictionary. You don't go back and look. If you look at the word salah in Quran, and someone says, there is no dictionary in the world that says salah means making wudu and then facing the qibla and raising the hands and then folding the hands and then reciting thana and fatiha and surah and ruku and sujood. There is no dictionary in the world that says this is what salah means. We'll tell them you're making a mistake. The word salah is the terminology used by Sharia that means a specific way of prayer. If you look in the dictionary, what does salah means, you will be misled. It will just mean prayer, dua. So this is why some people there were people in our history, and it's still there, they exist, who claim that there is no need to go through the whole procedure of salah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma aftah li abwab rahmatik, birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. You did salah. And this is what they do. Easy way out. Why? Because they looked in the dictionary. And the dictionary says salah means prayer. So dua is a prayer. Just make dua, that's it, you're done. Same thing. It's the same type of mistake when a person picks up a book of hadith and where it says the hadith is da'if and it says, this means the hadith is not acceptable. If the hadith is about some virtues of some good deeds and says da'if, it means the hadith is acceptable. This is what it would translate it to. This is what it means. That it is acceptable. The point I was mentioning, there are different levels of hadith. And Muhadtheen wrote their books with different intentions, for different purposes. So books of hadith have been written for many different purposes. Every Muhadtheen assigned a goal, a purpose for which he's writing that book. And then, according to these goals he has set, according to the purpose that he have in his mind for writing the book, this is how he's going to choose the hadith for that book. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he wrote a book called Sahih al-Bukhari, as we know it as Sahih al-Bukhari, although the name is different, but we know it as Sahih al-Bukhari. He wrote that for a specific purpose. And therefore he chose a specific type of a hadith for that book. Then he wrote another book, as we have it here, Adab al-Mufrad. He wrote this for a different purpose. Accordingly, he chose different type of a hadith in this book. If someone would come and tell us, you shouldn't read this hadith, this book. Why? Because there are some da'if hadith in this book. Are we going to say there is no da'if hadith? Yes, there are da'if hadith. My question is, who wrote this book? Subhanallah. We are accepting the Sahih al-Bukhari from him, we are rejecting al-Adab al-Mufrad. Oh, you wrote this? You didn't know Hadith at that time. Who wrote this book? Was he just a child who didn't know the science of Hadith? Was he a normal person like us? This is the greatest muhaddith who wrote that book. He wrote this book too. And he collected these ahadith for us to read them, to follow them, to practice them. It's not to say, no, this is all rejected now. So Muhadtheen wrote the books of ahadith for different purposes. And we have to look at what was the purpose. And who is collecting the ahadith? Who is writing this book? And then we can understand that really these muhaddithin, when they put this hadith in this book, when Imam Bukhari is writing these hadiths in this book, that simply means these hadiths are to be followed, to be accepted, and to be practiced in our lives. So there are many books of ahadith, different types of books of ahadith, and there are many levels of the ahadith. It's not easy for me and you to start judging. And as I said, unfortunately what is happening these days is someone picks up a book of hadith and then he starts saying this hadith is daif, this hadith is sahih, this hadith is daif, this hadith is sahih, and they come up with a list of daif and sahih. That means nothing. It really means nothing. Do you think that throughout these 1,000 years, from the time these books were written, all the other muhaddithin were ignorant, they didn't know that there are daif hadith, there are different levels of hadith in this book? They all knew it. They accepted all of these hadiths because they knew that these are all acceptable. Not only this, just for us to understand the science of hadith, one more interesting point. Sometimes there may be a hadith that is sahih, very authentic, and may even be in all the authentic books of hadith. There is another hadith that is called daif. Now again, remind you, never translate the word daif as unacceptable or unauthentic. As we know, terminology of hadith. So there is a hadith that is sahih. On the other hand, we have hadith that is called daif. You know, we may not realize it. There are many times when the whole ummah is practicing the hadith that is daif and not accepting the hadith that is sahih. Are you surprised? Yes, it is a fact. If you go through the hadith of salah, you would find that there is some hadiths there also that are of that level. Sahih is not accepted, and da'if unanimously agreed upon and all accepted it. Why? Because the hadith that is sahih, maybe that after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we saw all the Sahaba were doing something different than what's in that sahih hadith, and they were practicing what's in this hadith that is da'if. So from that we understand, although the hadith is da'if, which means someone in the narrator, of the chain of the narrator of the hadith, was a weak person. Because of that we declared this hadith to be da'if. But the practice of all the Sahaba tells us that this was the last action of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not only this, let's go on a higher level of example there. And sometime there may be an ayah of Quran. What can be more authentic than that? The most authentic thing we have is Quran. Nothing more authentic than Quran. There may be an ayah of Quran, something that is in Quran, no question about being daif or weak or unacceptable, but is not being practiced. And we know it. There are ayahs in Quran that we don't practice them anymore. For example, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la taqrabu as-salata wa antum sukara. O you who believe, do not go near to salah while you're intoxicated. Which means, if you are not about to pray, then you are allowed to drink. But we all know the ayah is abrogated. is not being practiced anymore. It's an ayah of Quran, very authentic, but has been abrogated. Same thing, there may be hadith that is very authentic but has been abrogated, and we know that it has been abrogated by the practice of all the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in. All Sahaba can be wrong. They won't just agree to something that is wrong, that is against the hadith. So they must know better than what we know from that one hadith. So this is why they were practicing something different. And there are many of these examples when we look at the fatwa of Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, especially things they agreed upon during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. There is a whole list of those things. In fact, there are books written about that topic. So, this was just a quick introduction to understand that there are different levels of ahadith, different type of books of ahadith, and the great Muhadtheen who wrote the most authentic books, they also wrote some other books, and those books are not considered as authentic as Bukhari and Muslim, but still these books are acceptable and those ahadith to be practiced, and we need to learn ahadith from all books of ahadith, not just from few books of hadith. Inshallah, we'll stop for salah, and after salah we'll continue. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. A quick introduction of the author of the book that inshallah we'll be studying. I'm sure everyone at least is familiar with the greatness of the